Okay, so I have a few books here and I just want to demonstrate what they look like under UV light. So the books here to the right, this one's 1940s sort of book. This is a 1960s book. The one to the left, I believe it was from 2010 onwards. So pretty new book. And you'll find that with these newer books, they have whiteners in there as well that do fluoresce under UV light. I've also got a $2 note from Singapore, and this also has some security markings, UV security markings on them as well. So let's have a look at how they all appear under the UV light. Okay, so here is the P56 on the UV mode, and you can see with the note already, there's like the two sort of symbol there, another symbol directly underneath there that doesn't show up. Also some numbers here on the right hand side that don't show up under normal light. Look on the other side. Really much besides the center, which has kind of this slightly fluorescent coloring in the center. There is some security marks there on the back, so mainly just here on the front. Now, if we compare the two books, well, these bunch of books anyway, you can see the book to the left. Just hold the light up a little bit higher. The book to the left, the paper fluoresces a lot more compared to this book here to the right and the book here to the bottom. Interestingly, the front of this book has some kind of, I don't know what it is, some type of new binding. I think they had fixed, it looks like they have fixed this book, maybe used a different kind of binding than the front. So that kind of looks a little bit more, it fluoresces just the same as the book to the left. Okay. But the actual pages itself, if you look at the photographs, okay, this is also that sort of shiny paper. It doesn't have any of these whiteners added. So you can tell that this is an old book, not a reprint. Okay. And same with this one here on the bottom, just with the normal pages as well. And you get this same sort of effect actually with newer books that are made out of this kind of generic paper that you get with most sort of storybooks. But I think the main tell is, yeah, these sort of pages in the center that have, yeah, kind of this shiny surface. Okay, there's no fluorescing. So here I have a little specimen of a skull, and basically we're going to look at it underneath the blue light and see if we can reveal anything in the bone structure, anything that fluoresces. So let's turn off the white light and have a look. Okay, so this is the skull under the P56 450 nanometer blue lights. But apart from this blue color that you see just covering the skull, there's not really nothing fluorescing. But when we use these red colored glasses, this is where we see something a little different. What I've done, I've now put the glasses lens directly under the camera lens, and you can see with the blue light, the lens filters out pretty much all of the blue light, leaving the remaining wavelengths to fluoresce. So you can see underneath the skull, there are these interesting parts that fluoresce, and I was wondering what they were, but a little closer up, I had a look afterwards, and it sort of looks like there's some glue or just some cleaning residue left over on the skull itself. And I thought there would have been maybe parts of the bone or, you know, calcification or something like that, but it does look like there could be some residues that are left over because I've gone and rubbed off some of that residue and it does move around. But this isn't really visible just through normal light. You can see some of the residue, but it doesn't show up as well as it does under the 450 nanometer with the red goggles. So here's another example of a shell and a couple of rocks. This is an ammonite, fossilized ammonite on the left, and this is just under the blue light, 450 nanometers again, and you can see there's not really much going on. It just looks blue. Okay, now if I add on these goggles again to the camera lens, have a look what happens. Okay, so now I've added on the red goggles to the camera lens so that you can see what I see when I've got the goggles on, and really it's quite interesting. You've got the ammonite and you can see the fluorescing areas here. Front, the back could be just due to the presence of a certain mineral in there. You've got this one as well, which is quite interesting. Little hints of orange, kind of warmer parts on the edge of the rock. That's about it, but just around the edges there, you can see a little bit of orangey, lighter fluorescing area. And this shell, see on the inside, also a fluorescing area in the center. Okay, so here is something quite interesting. I found that with nails and skin, they also fluoresce under this blue light when you're using the red goggles. So as you can see, nails have kind of orangey, take on this orangey color. Okay, once you filter out all the blue wavelengths, that's what's left over. It's pretty much impossible to see with the naked eye without the red goggles. But if you even just look at my nails themselves, okay, they fluoresce too. Okay, that's my nail there. And it also seems to pick up on dead skin. So you can see here just on my hands here, I do a bit of weightlifting. So you can see there is a bit of dead skin and calluses just on the back of my hand. It's quite interesting and maybe useful as well if you're trying to detect any bits of dead skin or nails. I thought maybe it could have been due to the keratin content, so I did try some of my own hair, and so I took out a few of my hairs just to see if that would fluoresce as well, and it doesn't seem to be the case. So, you know, maybe different types of hair could fluoresce, but my hair certainly doesn't fluoresce. Theory could be just due to the maybe bacterial reaction to some of the bacteria just leaving their waste compounds and underneath the nails or the dead skin, perhaps, that's causing this fluorescence. So here's a little test with the infrared 850 nanometer mode on the P56, and I've just come up with a few test lines here. Okay, so in the top one, I've actually used a combination of ballpoint pen and liquid ink, two types of liquid ink for this second one, ballpoint and liquid ink here. And what I've done here is that I've used ballpoint pen below and gone over the top with liquid ink. So one of the interesting things about II light is that it's able to see through certain materials and identify different densities. So let's turn off the main light and let's have a look. So here is that same sheet of paper. Okay, I'm just using my phone camera because it seems to be much more sensitive to infrared light. And I've got the P56 here, and you can see with this top number there, okay, the difference between the ballpoint pen and the liquid ink. Okay, the liquid ink is just showing up as black. The ballpoint just lightens completely, so you can see that's been tampered with. This one here, I've used two different types of liquid ink. Doesn't seem to be any difference there in the lightness of the different numbers, though I added an extra 2 in the front. Same thing here for this third example. I've added in a 2 there, but the $sign and the 5,000 were done in ballpoint. So these would be good examples if you looking to identify fraudulent checks, documentation. Now here's something really interesting. These two bottom ones I've just scribbled over the top with ballpoint ink, so you really just cannot see anything, and I've used normal ink below. And look at that. I mean, that's clear as anything. You can see there I've got like a message, secret message that just says message, and also underneath here just a little smiley face. Okay, so here's something interesting with infrared light as well. I'm just using my leg here as an example, but you can see the vein patterns quite clearly under infrared light. Now, I don't have a proper infrared camera, but even with just using my phone on the night mode, it's able to pick up those vein patterns on my leg. And vein patterns, from what I read, are just as identifiable and unique as fingerprints. So I thought that was a really interesting little discovery. But again, I mean, the effect is you're only just able to see it here. You're going to need a proper infrared camera to capture this. And here's another example here just of my arm and the vein pattern here on my arm. And I read an interesting case where a perpetrator's veins, their individual veins that were captured on infrared camera, were compared to ones afterwards when they were asked to have them photographed, and was actually prosecuted on the basis of that, just due to how unique people's vein patterns are. And it was actually proven in that particular case to be as individual as fingerprints. I can't really see them so well on certain parts of my skin. So it's more the lighter parts of my skin. The veins seem to show through. On this side where I've got a bit of a tan, it's kind of more difficult to see them. Okay. Don't think you can really see the little capillaries and veins and stuff on my fingers. So I'm using the P56 now, just on the green mode, so 525 nanometers. And what I really find with the green mode is that it just seems to be very sensitive to picking up keratinization. So any kind of darker spots on the skin, it could be a pore, it could be just a new scar or something like that. As you can see here, these are actually just some pores, some sort of darker pores here on my skin, and they show up really, really easily. Definitely not a flattering kind of look at all. You can see they show up on the side of my arms. Now, another very interesting thing I found, and it is difficult to show this on camera, but I do find that the green light is really good at picking up fingerprints without any additional goggles or aids, I guess, powders and stuff like that. So you can see here, I mean, it is a little bit tricky again to see underneath, directly underneath the camera, but yeah, got a print there. Yep. And just on the lens, the bottom right-hand corner, the lens there as well. It really just seems to reveal kind of oily areas as well. See, there's oils in your fingers. Okay. But surprisingly easy to see these fingerprints, identify them without any additional chemicals or what have you. Just got my phone here and same sort of deal. Added a bunch of fingerprints onto the front of it. And if I compare it and we sort of use some other lights, the red works as well. Blue, not as much. Okay. But if we just compare it to, say, the white light, okay, I don't find the white light to be as effective as the green. Okay. So if we compare them, for some reason, the green just really seems to emphasize those prints, especially if we look in the center. It's appear brighter, easier to see, and especially with the naked eye as well, because our eyes are more sensitive to the green wavelength. And to see those prints a lot more easily with the green. Red, for some reason, shows up quite well under camera, but with the naked eye, I really can't make out much of those prints at all. Blue. Similar sort of story here. Looks decent under the camera, but a little bit tricky for me to see it with the naked eye. Okay, so this here is a little test with the P56, and you can see I'm just using the white light mode here at the moment. You can see a little bit of bruising on the skin, and we're going to switch over to some other modes. So this is green, And one thing I find about the green mode is that you can really see, really emphasizes the pores and maybe some pigmentation on the skin. But strangely enough, it emphasizes the pores. And you can see a little bit of the bruising come through. I'd say probably a bit more than the white light if you compare, tiny bit more. Difficult to see on camera. We've got red, which really just, can't really see too much, but it does allow you to see the veins, arteries through the skin. Okay, but probably the most revealing light would be the blue. So a little bit difficult here to see on camera, but certainly the bruising does stick out a lot more on the blue wavelength. Okay, and here we've got infrared. Nothing much really happening there, but the camera does pick up a little bit of the infrared. And here we have UV, ultraviolet, which also does reveal the bruising. But I mean, compared to, say, the white light that we have here and the UV light, the UV light does show up a little bit better. But you do need another camera like I'm using now to actually see that, unless you're a bit closer. I'd say the blue light here just really makes the bruising stand out, especially bruising that's slightly, it's older, it's starting to heal up, and to the naked eye you can't really see the discoloration, but under the blue light definitely a lot more. Okay, so here's the Nextorch P56 just on the red mode, so 630 nanometers. And what I found, as you can see, it's really good at visualizing vein patterns. You can even see these smaller veins here, and these are barely visible if I don't have the red light on. And because red light is very close to the infrared range, it seems to give this sort of effect. Now I do lower the intensity of the red light a little bit in order to get this effect with it. It's too intense. I find that it just turns everything. Okay, but with a softer sort of red light on a lower mode, you can really visualize vein patterns easily. And like I mentioned before, vein patterns are very unique to each individual and can be used as evidence. So that's my right arm. Let me just show you my left arm. And you can see that there is, a significant difference in the vein patterns of my left and my right arms. Like, squeeze my arm a bit. Maybe I can make these veins pop out a little bit more. It's kind of freaky. Look into my hands, see if we can see anything in my hands. You can see the veins sort of in my hands, but not really the ones that are underneath the skin, like these here, that don't pop out. So these are actually underneath the skin, and they don't, they look constricted compared to these ones up here, which are above, sort of protrude out from the skin. So yeah, red light penetrates beyond the outer layer of your skin. That's how it's able to get to those veins. Okay, so over here I have an example of identifying footprints, and I've just gone ahead and done a couple of these footprints here, and you can see the top one, it's kind of a little bit difficult to identify. I'm just using a normal tactical flashlight, and the beam profile you can see has a sort of concentrated hotspot in the center and then the spill at the side. I find that the concentrated hotspot just kind of blows out any imprints. Okay, and this is just carpet in my house, so basically it just starts to go back to normal pretty much as soon as you step off. But you can see here, compared to this, the beam of the P56, at the bottom, the P56 is a very even beam all the way through. So I find that those imprints just show out, just look a little bit more, it looks better because the light is more evenly dispersed, so the center of the beam like in the top one. It's not just blowing out the entire center of the scene. So here's just another example. I've just done a couple of imprints again. And as you can see, like the bottom one just looks more even. And if you're going to take a photograph as well, it would just look better. You can see all the negative imprints of the foot. Okay, all around to the edge. Was the top one, it kind of just leaves out the top because I don't have the beam shining up the top. It's more through the center and at the bottom, and actually eliminates some of the detail to the left of the footprint just due to the amount of light hitting that part of the foot. We do see the imprint on the right hand side of the foot, but the left hand side, you don't see it as much. Notice the one here at the bottom. And you might have sort of examples like this where you've got a tape measure right next to the imprint of the foot. Okay, so you can work out the size of the person's foot, and if they're wearing a shoe especially, what size shoe they're wearing, what pattern of imprint there is at the bottom. And I know that a lot of law enforcement agencies work with companies, and the companies share the data of their shoe designs, the imprints, so that if the police ever need to identify an imprint, they can identify the brand of the imprint, the year of manufacture, the particular stores that stock that shoe. So something cool that you can do as well is you can identify a lot of surface material using the white or the green light. For some reason I just find the green light works quite well. Just like the white light. I can't decide actually which one works better, but I do find for some reason with hair, it just seems to show up a little bit more easily under the green light. A bit more easy to identify than the white light. I don't know why exactly, but to me it just seems a little bit more easy to identify. Again, down the back with the white light and the green light. You know, another hair there, some surface material at the back, just dust and other debris. But yeah, because the hair actually casts a little bit of a shadow there, it just makes it quite easy to identify. If you're doing like a quick sweep or something like that, you're able to find them, rather than when you're just on top like this. I mean, look at that. You can barely see anything there. It's very difficult to see. Even with the white light like this, it's almost invisible. But as soon as you shift the angle from this top down view to this side on view like that, as you can see, you can identify a lot of dirt and stuff like that.